What's up guys, I'm Suman from Phonestein, and in today's video we will be taking a look at a brand new case from Zebronics, and this is called Helius. This case has many things right with really amazing features, but it also has certain things on the negative side, and in today's video let's check out what are all those. So without wasting any precious time, let us begin. Now the build of the Helius is very solid, and that is all thanks to the perfect combination of metal and plastic which is implemented at the right places. And due to this solid construction, it makes the entire case heavy, and especially when you cram in all the necessary hardware, then it becomes even more heavy to lift. But that is actually a really good thing because the case is not going to be toppling over anytime soon. And also the case is very tall. Even though this is a mid-tower case, it is a pretty tall case, so make sure that you have in mind before purchasing this. Now the rubber feet provided on the bottom is really good, and it provides really good friction and doesn't allow the case to move here and there. Now there's a huge filter on the top, and that literally covers 70 to 80% of the entire top section of the case. I accept that there is a huge filter to cover your top peripherals, and it allows more air to come in, but it also allows more dust to be collected on the top. But anyways, there is good airflow, and again at the bottom there is a filter, so you don't have a really clumsy one which is just attached for the sake of attaching. So this is a solid filter placed at the bottom, and it really eliminates dust from entering your power supply. So there's one gripe that I have about this case, and that is the side panel. Now the previous case that I checked out from Zebronics, which is the Typhoon, had an amazing tempered glass side panel, and I hoped this would also have, but sadly this has an acrylic panel, and acrylic is not the best, and I really hate acrylic as it gets scratched up how much ever you protect it. Even though if I had to pay out extra money for that tempered glass panel, I am ready to spend, because that gives it a even more really aesthetically pleasing look. Now the highlight feature above this case is of course your front panel. So this is no ordinary front panel, and you have a huge mirror like front panel which has some amazing cool effects. It is actually a really cool effect, and I think they have been inspired by an Invent case which I've previously taken a look, and I think they've pulled it off really well. The happy news is that of course you need glass to do this, so the front is of course tempered glass. That is cool. But there again is few drawbacks of this. Number one is that you have only solid colors and really two modes to change between. Now Zebronics, they really have no support for motherboards. As you know, nowadays motherboards have these lighting related softwares and RGB pins on their motherboard, so Zebronics don't support any of them, and due to this you have to deal with only the colors that are present here. And even though the LED strip is RGB, you can't utilize it to the fullest. And there's another thing that really pisses me off, is that there is no freaking brightness control, and that is really frustrating. I can also deal with the fact that you can't customize your RGB LEDs to an extent, but this is really frustrating. The LEDs on the case are very bright, and while watching movies or when you're watching videos, it is a source of immense distraction, which is actually not fun at all. So hope Zebronics will implement a brightness toggle on the case itself, and that will definitely help many people. And again you have 3 RGB fans provided, and on the topic of LEDs, we have a set of LEDs on the PSU shroud, and that somewhat gives a cheap look to the case. Even if they had installed the LEDs on the bottom of the case itself, so on the bottom a strip of LED, then it would have given it a more like a glow to the PC, and that would have been even more great. But they keeping it on the PSU shroud is it actually makes no sense, and I am asking Zebronics to please change that soon. Please, please, please change that. We don't want to see that. Now moving on to the other features. This has support for both micro ATX and ATX motherboards. Now after installing all your hardware, there is plenty of space inside the case, so there's no restriction for airflow, and due to this like immensely large space available, airflow is really good, and the provided fans are actually really good. Even though I didn't like the design, they function really well, providing really good cooling solution to the entire case. And on the topic of fans, you have support for 3 120mm fans on the top, one 120mm fan at the back, and you have support for 3 120mm fans in the front. So you need to just take out that front panel which has the infinity mirror and install your fans. And even with the provided 3 fans, the cooling on this case is amazing. My CPU doesn't cross the 60-degree mark even at heavy load. My GPU doesn't go too hot. Now if you're a person who's really concerned about cooling of your hardware, then you will be pleased to hear that this case does a really amazing job of cooling your internals. As for the front IO, you have 2 USB 3 ports and you have 2 USB 2 ports, and I wish there could have been USB-C, but that is just overgreed because not everyone have like moved on to the USB trend. But anyways, that would have been great. And you have all your fan controls. You have dedicated fan controls for the back and the top fans, and as I previously mentioned, if there was a toggle to control the brightness of the case, then that would have been a really good boon, but sadly it is not there. Hope it comes in a revised version of this case. Now as for hard drive support or SSD support, you have support for up to 3 3.5-inch hard drives and 4 SSDs. That is a pretty good number. As for hard drives, installation and connecting cables is going to be easy peasy, but when it comes to SSDs, that is where you can find some problem. So there's no problem with mounting the SSDs because you have really good mounting points, but the mounting positions are where something is wrong with, because if you are a cable management freak, then you might have a really tough time routing the cables properly to your SSDs, and I definitely had a really tough time. Now on the topic of cable management, I think it is a really good one, not the best but really good one. You have cutouts for routing your cables through. There's this PSU shroud which has many cutouts through which you can pull out your cable, but it is not the best because on the back you have of course you have many mounting points, but certain wires of fans aren't like really long. Now you can't hide those wires like properly, and if you have some like really grand light show, then I think those would show up. Now even in my case, I had to do some modifications and just route the fans properly, else I would have not been able to hide the cables as good as what I've done here. Now at the back you have a control hub to which all your fans are connected to, and this is a really good implementation from Zebronics. Now all you have to do is supply it with power and you are good to go. So all your fan control speeds, your light changing, all takes place via this hub. Now on to the conclusion. The Helius is a really good case, but it also has its fair shares of negatives. Now like the acrylic panel, which gives it a very cheap look. The array of LED which shines from your PSU shroud again gives it a very cheap look. Your lack of customization of your RGB LEDs inside because it doesn't have support for any motherboard, and last but not the least, there's no brightness controls. These are like really small things which destroy the overall look of the case. This is just me being very harsh on Zebronics because I want them to revise this case again and come out with an amazing model which has acrylic panel, support for brightness control, and the ability to connect it to your motherboard and have it work in sync with other peripherals which also have RGB. So small things like this will make this case even more tempting. Now if Zebronics manages to fix all these small issues ASAP, then I'm sure this case is worth checking out. Until then, I would really suggest you go with the Typhoon, because that is as a whole a much prettier case to look at and to work with. Sorry Zebronics for being harsh, but I want you guys to make an even more amazing version of this case. But anyways, thank you for watching, and this is Sumant signing off once again. Catch you later.